Let's talk about my Tampa Bay Buccaneers here with a very fascinating draft. Not exactly what I would have done, I don't think. I think there were some weird, a little bit off the wall selections here, but some ones I liked as well. And I do trust Jason Light with some of this stuff. So, first, they did not have a first round selection. Well, okay, they did have a first round selection. They traded back. Was a little bit surprised. They could have drafted Wyatt there if they really wanted defensive tackle, but I think they liked Logan Hall. I like Logan Hall. It's kind of funny. This is back to back years now. One of my guys gets selected. Last year I was a big fan of Joe Tryon Soyinka, although, in hindsight, maybe some of his, pass rush statistics should have been a bit concerning. I hadn't really learned about that stuff last year. This year, I know a little bit more, but I still liked him a lot last year. And Logan Hall, I like a lot this year, who's really just a fascinating player. He's someone who again, if you don't know anything about him, kind of like an undersized defensive tackle, but he primarily used power and was successful with it. Also has good hands, really good pass rusher from the inside. I've heard some people, so it seems like Todd Bowles wants him to gain some weight. And I've heard some people say, well, aren't you going to lose your explosiveness? That's not the main way he won. So I actually think that actually makes some sense if he can gain some weight and still, use his move as well. Yeah, have him gain some weight. That could work out because having a good pass rusher on the inside next to Vita Vea could be awesome. And they needed some defensive line help. They really did. I mean, they don't really have, they still have Will Goldson. They re-signed him. That's an underrated signing, but you still needed another defensive tackle. And, I thought they probably could have gone edge rusher here. I wonder if Jason Pierre-Paul is going to be back now. That's an interesting thing. Or if Tryon Soyunka is going to get more playing time. But Logan Hall, very good pick. I like it a lot, especially at 33. Luke Godeki, I believe is how you say his name, is an interesting one. Another guy who, not someone who is really on my radar, but I think he should be able to play guard pretty well. It seems like, the only times he would get beat were kind of with speed, which isn't that big of a deal when you're playing guard. So you have that benefit immediately. And for someone like Godeki, he's someone who had good production at the college level that tends to translate to the NFL level. So I thought Raymond was the better, tackle from that school. I would have gone with him personally. But again, you're not trying to draft a tackle. You're trying to draft a guard. And so because of that, I think that's probably why they made that selection. I think he probably will be good. Maybe not necessarily the dream scenario, but someone who I like. And let's be honest, Jason Light has a good history of hitting on day two offensive linemen. So I will defer to him on that stuff. Pick 91, Rashad White here, who my first reaction is, what are we doing? Drafting a running back? Come on. But the more I thought about it, the more it makes some sense. So the logic behind it is he's a pass catching halfback who could be a James White type. Okay, like that makes sense. Sure. Spend the 91st overall pick on that. All right, I don't hate that. Once you think about it that way, it's like, yeah. And again, this is what Tampa Bay is doing, is they're solely picking for need. They're not necessarily trying to maximize the value of these selections. What they're solely doing is trying to do what's going to help them the most this year, which, looking at it that way, hey, these picks are going to help them out, right? Luke Godeki is going to be a starting guard for them, I'm assuming. Logan Hall is going to probably get at least 500 snaps on the defensive line, if not more. And Rashad White might be a significant pass-catching halfback, which they've tried to get guys who can do this. Fournette is a great runner. Really, all he does is run check down routes, and then he drops a decent amount of passes as well, which is not great. Catches the ones that matter, but definitely, in that playoff run, he caught that, obviously, that big fourth down that set up the Scotty Miller Hail Mary, but still, not someone you want to rely on. White can be someone you want to rely on. Granted, Jason Lights, if I'm saying on one hand, hey, he has a good history with offensive linemen, so I won't criticize that pick. The flip side is doesn't have the best history with running backs. It just doesn't. That's just the reality situation. Keyshawn Vaughn, Ronald Jones. We'll see if Rashad White can break that trend. Cade Otton here at pick 106, tight end, who seems like a blocking tight end. Seems like he could be an O.J. Howard replacement, actually, because they could use another blocking tight end. I think some people are saying this is Rob Gronkowski insurance. I said that as well, because it might be Rob Gronkowski insurance. However, this is not just that, but he'll still probably get some playing time as, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will run 3 tight end sets. So even if Gronkowski is out there, Otton will still get some playing time, which would be nice. This pick I did not love. 133, Jake Camarda. I'll have to learn how to say his name. At pick 370 or pick 133, he was 317 on the consensus big board. He's a punter slash kicker who obviously will be coming in to punt for the Buccaneers. Runs a fast 40. He runs like a 4.6 40. So I sort of joked about, hey, maybe he could play gunner on his own punts or something. Maybe that's value, is that he can, help in the punt return game if he has to, but you don't really want your punter having to make tackles. He is someone who, listen, I don't know anything about him as a punter. He might be an amazing punter. It's just, I don't love, punters aren't that valuable. Getting a punter at 133, it doesn't make sense. This is now the second year in a row the Buccaneers have selected a pure special teams guy in the fourth round, or at least a guy who they feel as though is going to be a special teams guy. That was Jalen Dardine last year, who was mostly a special teams guy. They now go with Jake Camarda here, which, again, I just don't love it. I'd rather get some depth at a certain spot than get a punter. The punter value here is not that important, but this is something Jason Light values. He obviously drafted a kicker round 2, infamously, who was out of the league a year later, so that didn't work out exactly. But this is what Jason Light kind of does. He thinks that special teams is an underrated aspect of football, and he's willing to spend some draft capital on it, but I don't love it. Finally, at pick one, not finally, but next at pick 157, Zion Mccallum, who, this is a very fun pick. A lot of people were higher on him. I didn't scout him too much in the pre-draft process. I am learning more about him now, but he's just an incredible athlete. He's one of the best athletes available, and he's still, he'll be 23 by the time he is a rookie. At 6'2", he is a good player. He had good production at college at Sam Houston State. So there you go. And, again, good production, did not give up too many yards. And I guess the thing about him is just this incredible athlete who has room to grow. So consensus big board had him at 110. He goes here at 157. So getting a guy like that at the 5th round could, at the very least, be good depth because, basically every one of their defensive backs is coming off of an injury. So get guys who, could potentially come back and, get someone who could at least, if nothing else, be depth here. I'm also seeing some conflicting reports on his height because I see one site says that he's 6'2", another site says he's 6'4". Who knows how tall he is, I guess. The final 2 picks. So first you have, a couple of these guys who are very much off the board picks, quite frankly. You look at the consensus big board rankings, which, by the way, that's the number you see next to their name is where they rank on the consensus big board. Keith, I believe is his name, in the 6th round, pick 218. He is someone who, seems like he's going to be like a great blocking tight end. So maybe the idea is that Cade Otton could be that role, but Keith is the kind of guy who, if Otton does not work out for whatever reason, he might be insurance for that, or just a quality backup in case someone gets hurt, because tight ends do get hurt. So seems like for a 6th round pick, that feels like cool value. And then Andre Anthony, who one of 2 players in this draft who did not have a ranking for where they were in terms of the consensus big board ranking, which there's like over 600 guys there. He was not one of them. I don't really know much about him, to be honest, so I can't talk too much about him. So sorry about not knowing a ton about the 248th ranked prospect. Seems like someone who, from what I have read about him, he was injured in 2021, and he's also kind of a smaller guy who doesn't have much of a pass rush. So other than that, despite the fact that besides that, I'm sure he's fine. So don't know much about him, can't comment on that too much, but he's a depth guy, so who cares? As a whole, I'd say a solid draft. Not my favorite, to be honest. I feel they could have done better, and I like Logan Hall. I think Luke Godeki seems cool, but I just thought we could have maybe gotten some more. Don't get me wrong, there is a scenario where this draft looks awesome if Logan Hall hits, which, there is some concern with Logan Hall of, like, he is more of a unique player, so there is a bust factor there, even though I usually always pound the table of, don't worry about measurables so much. Are you good at football? He's good at football, but still, the measurables, he is kind of in a weird body type. Luke Godeki wasn't my favorite, and Rashad White is still a running back at pick 91. So those alone, there is a very real chance we didn't get much better in this draft class, but there's a very real chance that we got a lot better in this draft class. So that's where things get very fascinating. And again, what the Buccaneers clearly have done since Brady has gotten here is they've solely picked for need. That's what they do. They say, what can we do that will help us today? What will help us today? And in the long term, it's probably not the best move, but in the short term, to try to maximize your Super Bowl window that you're currently in right now, it's a smart move. So that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.